What's up, everyone? Welcome back
loading.
to Velo. Boys, we finally got a season. About time. Took a What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Exit Velo. Ryan Morick here with you alongside Adam Cohen and Henry Winkelhake. Boys, about friggin' time. We finally got a baseball season. It's funny. I like how I got my Giants jersey on. Henry got his Cubbies on. Adam, I'm assuming you got the Yankee jersey on. I feel like it's funny because we didn't even talk about that, and we were always like, nah, we gotta rock something some sort of team attire right now. First of all, we got a lot to talk about. I want to dissect the season itself. I want to talk about how the players finally got what they wanted. There are obviously some rule changes going on. But first and foremost, I think we are all very happy. We were all ripping apart the owner's side and the player's side for a long while. But we all pretty much admitted that the second that a season was going to be announced, we were going to be the first ones watching it. And that's why we're talking about it right now. As much as we wanted to complain about everything, Adam, we can't lie. We're obviously very excited that there's a season happening.
I think we might be having technical difficulties on Adam's end.
Oh, I can't believe it. When the players rejected that original C game deal, I thought it was going to take a while before Manfred would mandate the season. But then lo and behold, it happened right away. And just like that, the season was going on. And then they somehow agreed to health and safety negotiations, which were stalling for 2 months. So it kind of just all fell into place at the right time. And at the end of the day, they got the job done, which took a while, but we should all be pretty happy there's a season.
Yeah, absolutely. We should be ecstatic that there is a season. And, I'm almost just as excited to not have to talk about these labor negotiations anymore as I am to watch baseball in the first place. Yep. It was looking dicey a little bit at the end. And I guess, they never really came to an agreement. But I guess coming to a mini agreement and that the players are going to play this out anyways. And baseball is back.
60-game season. It looks like everyone's going to have about 10 games versus each team in their original division, and then it's going to be 20 games of the corresponding location in the opposite division. So the Yankees will play the remaining of their 20 games against the National League East, AL East, NL East, NL Central, AL Central, AL West, NL West. That's the way that goes. The separate COVID-19 list is also a thing. They've been saying that there's really no timetable on how long you have to stay on that list for. And they are starting off with 29-man rosters, and then it's going to be trickled down to 26 by the end of the first month, which I think is very important, guys, because we don't really know what players are doing right now. And a buddy and I were having this conversation. What's going to be more rusty, hitting or pitching? And I think hitting is going to be a lot rustier because pitchers, at least from what I've seen on social media, I think it's a lot easier for pitchers to get work because they're just doing the same repetition over and over and over again. Whereas hitters, they really only get to see batting practice and pitching machines that can't even mimic that. So, but on top of that, pitchers haven't really gotten the chance to go full throttle just yet. I mean, sure, maybe you have some guys that are out there throwing 70-pitch simulated games, but obviously nothing's like the real deal. So I kind of like the 29-man roster to start the season. Adam, what's your thoughts on that to start off the beginning of the year?
The 29-man roster is excellent, and I think you can have as many as 30 players or so. Correct me if I'm wrong. That can be like this.
Yeah, there's a taxi squad and all that, but that's a lot of not going to lie, that's stuff that I don't quite comprehend just yet.
I don't entirely understand it, but I think it means that, hey, if someone is needing a day off or they want to switch out some players, they're able to do that now, which is great. So that certainly helps because I think both sides will certainly be rusty. On one side, you're getting, like you mentioned, the hitters haven't faced pitching in such a long time. The pitchers, meanwhile, haven't faced live hitters in such a long time. That's why there's spring training 2.0. They'll get rid of the kits, and hopefully by the actual regular season, they'll be ready to go and give it their all in 60 games.
And building off of that taxi squad point, I thought I had heard too that there's like a reserve player pool just in case teams see a mass wave of infections to where they do have players to take the reins and you don't have a whole team shut down. But I do think that it is great to have a big roster, expanded roster, because the kind of the stop-start nature of it's been 3-4 months now since they geared back up last spring training. We're going to see some injuries, so I think it is good to have some additional hands on deck. And people are going to be pushing with a 60-game season. It's going to be kind of like a playoff atmosphere from the get-go. So maybe that contributes to injuries as well. I just hope it doesn't get too ugly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Adam and I are both Yankee fans, and we've seen our fair share of injuries over the last couple of years. But that's a good segue. I mean, this 60-game season, it's automatically a sprint now, and I want to talk about how differently games are going to be played in a 60-game year as compared to under 62 games. And Henry, since you brought it up, injuries, I really wonder, because the IL stints, except for pitchers, I think for everyone it's now 10 days. For pitchers it was 15 before this year. Position players it was 10. Now it's 10 throughout the board. But now if you miss 10 games, you're missing you're missing a sixth of the season. You miss 10 games in a regular season, you're hardly missing any time. It's amazing how much more important each game is now. So, and that leads me to wonder, Henry, I wonder if we're going to see teams and players. I feel like if you have a nagging injury and you're coasting into first place, go on the IL, get healthy. We need you for October. But now you're not gonna be able to take that big of a lead in your division so early in the season because of how short the season is. So I really wonder if teams are just gonna go full throttle and play through these injuries because they might not really have much of a choice.
Well, not only that, too, you make a good point that the shortened season, you don't have a whole lot of time to come back and get back in rhythm. You don't have the last 2 months of the season to find your swing again before the playoffs. It's kind of 60 games is all you got. So if you're come back and you're cold, then you're not really any good to the team. And it's going to be interesting to see how these injuries are handled going forward. Because, it is a shortened season. You want to try and get the most you can out of these guys, but how deep do you invest into this 1 year, this kind of tainted season, or do guys kind of hold off and play it safer, looking more to the future? And I guess that it really is probably going to be a case by case, depending on a team situation and player situations.
It's going to be wild to see. Adam, give me your thoughts.
I thought of a crazy idea, and it's going to sound a little bit messed up, but okay, for the COVID players who get COVID, it's a separate DL stint entirely. And I think you have to wait at least 3 days and not have any symptoms. What if teams didn't want to put their players in a 10-day IL, fake them having COVID,
God,
and try to get them easier back? Now, I don't know.
We're looking at you, Dodgers.
That'd be crazy ballsy.
Yeah, but we've seen fake IL stints though.
Exactly, that's why I'm thinking that.
It could be. I feel like people wouldn't take it that far into consideration. If you have a nagging injury, you can just be like, look, he's going to be out for a couple of days. It's not the end of the world. But I don't know if you get. Hey, you know what? We've seen this COVID thing go pretty political. If someone has a wild stance like that, it wouldn't surprise me at all. But let's go back to just dissecting this whole 60-game season. Keep in mind that a lot of these analytics that we have grown to get accustomed to over the last couple of years, it's throughout 162 games. So I really wonder if that's going to lead us to if managers are going to manage based on analytics. Are we going to see more bunting, more stolen bases, more small ball? Are we going to see a different style in manufacturing runs? Because a lot of these stats, in my opinion, guys, I feel like they're going to be thrown out the window. And we'll talk about small ball when we get into the rule change of the guy on second. But Adam, we've seen home run or nothing over the last couple of years. Say it's the juice ball, say it's guys working out harder, whatever the case may be. but I really wonder if we're going to see a different style of play this year.
I think every team will try to use as many resources as possible. For example, the Royals have some of the fastest players in baseball.
Yeah.
They have Alberto Mondesi and Whit Merrifield. Now, does anyone really expect the Royals to make the playoffs? No, but imagine they go on even a 20-20 tear, and they say, "No, what? I want these guys to run like the devil. I want them to run as many times as possible." They might do that. The Nationals, who had a terrible, terrible bullpen last year, what if they just say, "Screw it, we're just going to throw our starting pitchers out in the bullpen, have them go long days against tough teams"? They could go that. We can see some crazy stuff happening, and those are just a few examples. The Yankees also might just do several bullpen games because they have a great bullpen. Teams will play their strength. They know they have a shot at the playoffs.
I think I agree with Adam that certainly in a shortened season, we're going to see some quirky things and we're going to see a lot of different strategies tried out. I wouldn't expect a massive movement back to small ball, though, necessarily. Ryan, you do make an interesting point, I should say, about analytics. I hadn't really thought about how a smaller sample size kind of impacts that. But I do expect, I think guys are still going to try and hit home runs. I think the game has shifted so much in that direction to where I don't think, enough has changed to where that isn't suddenly the game plan,
Yeah.
So I don't, and especially if the baseball stays the way as it was last year, I think guys are still going to be swinging for the fences. But I know we're going to talk a little bit about the extra innings change. I think that is really small ball is going to play a big role there.
Yeah, for sure. You bring up a good point in the fact that it's just the way that the game is played now. I mean, when was the last time a guy like Aaron Judge or Mike Trout or Joey Gallo or Pete Alonso or Anthony Rizzo, when was the last time that these guys have been asked to bunt? Like, we think of – because I think we've all played baseball, but we were never much of – I was a power hitter when I was 11 years old, when I was the biggest kid on the field. When I was 17, I wasn't that good of a hitter anymore, so I was asked to bunt when I was playing high school ball. Like, these guys who hit 40 home runs a year, they're not asked to bunt. So as crazy as it sounds, it is a pretty tall order for them. But and again, I mean, I wonder about analytics because I feel like you're going to have a real feel for the game at this point. And Adam, you mentioned pitching. I think that you better have a deep bullpen, and that deep bullpen better stretch into your minor league system because, again, with this 29-man roster, I feel like you want to use as less guys as possible, but at this point, it's kind of unavoidable. Henry, you mentioned the rule change. I want to hold off on the – actually, you know what? No, I don't. I feel like that's been taking the league by storm. The runner on second base. Not my first preference, but, guys, I can't lie. I like it a lot. I think that it's going to be very, very exciting. And, look, if I'm Rob Manfred, I don't implement it, but I do think it has – to be completely honest with you, I think it has a lot more pros than cons. I will hold off, but Henry, I want to hear your side first.
I will say I agree with you, Ryan. I think it is going to be very exciting. But I
Adam
also
gave me a look like, dude, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, I think I agree with Adam a little bit too, then, because I also kind of hate it. And I'm coming from a place of bias there, and that I think it does kind of unfairly hurt the teams that don't have great bullpens. If you don't have a stud or two or three that you can put out there to consistently shut down that inning and make sure that runner doesn't get in from second.
Very fair.
As a fan of a team with a pretty atrocious bullpen, I have a feeling the Cubs are going to lose like 5+ games off of this year. So I think it's a little bit unfair. And I love like watching a 16, 17 inning game, man, going late into the night. I'm not ready to go to bed yet, but I think, they got to speed up the game going forward, and this is a way to do it. So, this is as good a time as any to test out the quirky stuff, right?
To combat you really quick, though, it's not like your Cubs have a bad offense. It's not like they can't afford a one-run trail, because keep in mind, if they let up a run in the top of the 10th, they're going to be in the same exact situation with a guy on second also. It's not like, hey, you're the away team, here's your guy on second base, but we're at the disadvantage. They're going to be having the same exact situation. So
That's a good
You
point.
make a great point that an inning can totally unravel after one single, but you don't have much to worry when it comes to the Cubs offense.
I hope not.
For sure. Adam, I want to hear your take, please.
Well, you guys know I'm a baseball purist, so of course I'm not a big fan of the idea. I don't really see how it speeds up the game because it gives both teams the same situation. Sure, you might see more scoring opportunity, and maybe teams as in the past, such as the Yankees, who just rely on the home run and don't know how to move a runner over, they could be affected by something like that. So I don't really know how it speeds up the game. However, I do think it's exciting because everyone will know, hey, this run really counts, and extra innings might get a little bit more fun. And to add on, there might be some crazy strategy. Remember Terrence Gore? He was on your Cubbies. He was on the Royals. What if he's always going to be – we always have a Terrence Gore in the 29th team because, hey, you could have a pinch runner on second base, get that run in. Who would you want? You would want a crazy fast guy on your team. Or what if the Giants, for example, they have Billy Hamilton. What if he strikes out to end the top of the ninth and they go into the next inning? He's the guy who goes on second base. It's possible. They could be using some crazy strategies to try to drive in that run when it comes to extra innings.
Do you get to pick your runner?
It's the last batted out.
Oh, okay.
But you can use the pinch runner based on the regular rule. But
Gotcha.
you bring up a good point, though. If a guy like Byron Buxton or Trey Turner or Terrence Gore or Billy Hamilton, if they are up in the top of the, let's say it's the top of the ninth inning, and they're up with nobody on and 2 outs, you better hope that your bullpen holds the lead in the bottom of the ninth. But with those guys who, well, I shouldn't include Buxton and Turner in that, but a guy like Billy Hamilton, who's not a great hitter, his job is to steal bases when he's on. It almost might be more beneficial for him and his team to literally look at 3 pitches down the middle, hope the bullpen gets the job done, and then you start right on second base. But that's why this thing's awesome. That's why that's kind of cool because there is a lot of strategy. Maybe we don't see a guy bunt right away. Maybe we see the reliever intentionally walk and force guys on. Now you're forcing your hand at putting a potential extra lead on base. So that's why I think that what this rule does, even though I don't like how it's a huge change. And Adam, you also bring up a great point in the fact that baseball's problem is not the length of the game, it's the pace of the game. And what pace is really being changed in the most important part of the ball game that everyone's going to watch. It's not like no one's turning away from extra innings. That's when we're even more glued. And is there going to be a shorter length of games when everyone has the same situation? So you bring up a really good point there, but I do like how all 3 of us, I'd consider us baseball purists to an extent. And I think that we're very excited to see, even though that we don't love the rule, I think that we can all agree that we're surely going to be on the edge of our seats. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Do you guys think it's something that sticks around long term, or is this just
I
one and
want to
done?
see what happens this year because, like Adam said, if a team is letting up a run and then scoring and letting up a run and scoring, which is very possible. Look at Game 6 of the 2011 World Series. The Cardinals tied the game up in the 9th. Josh Hamilton gives them a 2-run lead. Cardinals come right back. They eventually win it in the 11th. So I think they're only going to bring it back if they see a substantial change in length of time for the duration of a full inning. I feel like ratings aren't going to be an exact science because you are taking away 500,000 people per night from the ballpark. So I don't really know how the ratings are going to change that much. And again, baseball is going to competing with every single sport. So again, ratings is going to be a tough issue. But I feel like that's an answer that we won't have yet. Adam, if you have an argument, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I think once MLB imposes a controversial rule, they're not going to back off of it. Look at the universal DH. People are saying, we're just doing it for this season. No, it's not. It's going to be here forever. Like there's no way that's going to change. and it's been a long time coming too.
Yeah.
Or that quick deal they had of the umpires. That was just a stalling tactic for perhaps the eventual robot umpires, which is another thing in itself. So I think anything they try to implement during this year, it's going to be permanent, because if this brings more fans to watch extra innings, because let's say you're the casual fan, you don't watch the whole game, but you turn on the top of the 10th, there's a runner on second, there's no one out. You're telling me you're not going to watch that? Of course you are. That's very exciting. So that could, I think it's only going to help ratings, because it's going to make the game more exciting. It's not very traditional, it's not very purist, but it will make it more exciting. And once it's here, I don't think it's going anywhere.
Of
I've
all
seen
the
so
changes,
many.
I'm sorry, Ryan. You
Go ahead. Sorry. I was just
gonna
going to say, like, I've seen so many fake baseball purists, like, who don't want anything changed. And I get it. Like, baseball is the sport where no one can handle change. Why, I don't know. But, like, we don't see it like that with football or anything like that. But I've just seen, like, so many people on Twitter, like, after when it goes into the 10th inning, I'm shutting the game off. Like, oh, okay, guy. Like, you're going to shut the game off in the 10th inning. Like, stop trying to be this, like, stop trying to be so tough. No, you're not. Like, we're not, like, good try. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, nobody's turning it off. It's going to be exciting baseball. I'm excited to see it. But of the rule changes this year, this is the one that strikes me as, like, possibly not permanent. Like, I know universal DH isn't going anywhere. I know playoffs are going to be expanded permanently eventually.
Yeah.
But this just seems like this seems more kind of out of left field than the other ones. I don't like. I haven't felt like there's been a whole lot of discussion like building up to this. I know they've been talking about speeding up the game and pace of play for years, but I didn't know if this like specific change was, something that has been on the horizon for a while. But I think, we'll see how it goes this year. And that, like you said, Ryan, that could have a big impact on whether or not that is part of the future plan.
I also feel like baseball's kind of trying to reinvent the wheel here, and I've used that phrase before, but I think baseball tries to do it a lot. And in this case, look, obviously we have extenuating circumstances, especially with this pandemic going on. And I feel like baseball is trying to give us the idea that they don't want the players around each other for that long. Well, you know what? 9 innings of baseball is already 3 hours anyway. So what's another X amount of time? Granted, if there's a crack on your phone, you're not just going to keep shattering your phone and tear it out to pieces. But at the same time, if everyone's around each other for 3 hours, look, I'm no doctor, but that's just common sense to me. And you also have to take into account that I don't think players want to be there for 16, 17, 18 innings, and they only have 6. I don't know what the math is between 143 off days and 100, whatever the math. I think it's 183 days and 162 games. Mm-hmm. So they have like 21 off days normally. I don't know what the exact math is, but 6 off days when you already have probably been training a lot these last 3 months. I'd feel like we don't think it right now, but there are probably going to be some dog days in September for sure.
I think that's one of the reasons why they want to implement this rule, because let's say they have a 6-inning game, and then, like, for example, the Yankees just have a 6-inning game, and that series they're going to have to play the Nationals, who are fully rested, won an easy game. Well, now your entire bullpen is just dog tired. Your hitters are dog tired, and have to face a great team. So I think they're trying to eliminate more exhaustion, because they're trying to get these 60 games as quick as possible, avoid a second wave, have everyone healthy, and get a World Series played during this year. So I think that's kind of the reason behind it. So it may not be permanent. I understand that, but I don't really see how MLB would take this away, especially since it might be pretty exciting for fans.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, when I went to the Mets, I had my fair share of rain delays and 13-inning ball games, and then I have to be right back at Citi Field at about 5 a.m. So if I were still working in the MLB, I'd be pretty happy about it. But we talked about the universal DH. Let's dive into it a little bit more. I think a lot of teams benefit from this. Henry, please feel free to dissect about how the Cubs benefit. I feel like every team kind of benefits from this. Maybe if you don't have a great usual pinch hitter that's their go-to. But I feel like a team like the New York Mets benefits from this a lot because I feel like that's why that Pete Alonso had a downfall in the second half. You got a 38-year-old Robinson Cano. You got J.D. Davis playing out of position. You got a guy named Yoenis Cespedes who the hell knows what's going to happen. But if he's on this roster, he's going to be getting some playing time. They just have a lot of options now. You got Dominic Smith who can get some at-bats. That's the showdown of the stick. Henry, you're the Cubs expert here. Give us how first of all, give us your feeling on the DH and how it affects the Cubbies.
Yeah, well, shame on me for not realizing the player safety factor in the extra innings and the extra inning change. That's a good point made by you guys there. And that's something, a player safety, I think, is really one of the explanations that has been offered for the universal DH this year, and that you're not making pitchers go to the plate where ugly things can happen. And when they get on base, they happen too. Pedro Strop tore his MCL a year or two ago trying to run the bases. So they're hopefully getting rid of some accidents like that.
Yeah, I was going to mention him.
Yep.
But I do think it helps the Cubs a lot. Getting Kyle Schwarber in the lineup every single day is going to be awesome. There's a handful. I mean, I don't think there's many losers in the NL. Pretty much all the good teams, it helps them. And the bad teams, it might make them even worse, and that there's going to be a disparity between the first guy off their bench and the first guy off the Dodgers bench. The Mets have a good lineup. They're going to be another team that benefits, like you talked about, Ryan. The Cardinals, too. You get Tyler O'Neill in the lineup every day. The Brewers sticking in the Central, having either Ryan Braun or Justin Smoke, a guy who could get DH at bats for them. And then you can have Avisal Garcia, Lorenzo Cain, Christian Yelich in the outfield.
Yeah.
But, for teams that have a lot of talent, have a logjam on offense, the Dodgers, another one, I should have mentioned them. It just helps you get another impact bat in the lineup. You get more at-bats for A.J. Pollock, or maybe Gavin Lux is playing closer to every day with the DH if he wasn't already. Just helps get you more talent, and it's going to be more exciting, more runs scored. I was kind of a purist lately, but I'm all in on it this year because I know how much it's going to help.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I feel like I always wondered why we always jump to the universal DH conclusion. Like, why couldn't the American League go back to the old roots? Because again, we talk about strategy. I think that I think that having a pitcher bunt isn't necessarily strategy, but double switches and all that, it's just an aspect that kind of interests me. And look, we can go back and forth on how we're finally getting a guy like Dominic Smith or Gavin Lux or Kike Hernandez or Tyler O'Neill, guys like that, getting at bats. Those guys are obviously better hitters than every single other pitcher. But I think because that it's throughout the National League now, the biggest impact is, like I mentioned with the Mets, you can keep Pete Alonso's bat in the lineup every day and plug Dominic Smith to first base. Robinson Cano, look, in the second half, he wasn't 2010 Robinson Cano, but he still hit like 290, 300 in the second half. Give him some off days. Give those 38-year-old legs some rest. Plug him into the DH spot, and you get that bat every day. So it's not even the fact that these bench players, I shouldn't say bench players, but guys who usually get 250 to 300 at-bats per year getting at-bats. They should be getting at-bats naturally. It's just the fact
I'm good.
We're going to be seeing better baseball by all-stars because they're not wearing and tearing their bodies throughout 9-inning ball games. Look at the Yankees. You got Aaron Judge. If he needs a day off, fine. DH him. Okay. Or Giancarlo Stanton. He's probably going to be the primetime DH. You DH him. I just feel like
thank you.
Getting people rest when they can still be utilized every single day is definitely a bonus for them. Adam's on the move somewhere.
Adam is reporting live from the office, looking for a quiet space to continue this podcast.
Adam Cohen, seriously. Like, we did not have to go on tonight. He decided to go to his office. He doesn't have his headphones in, but I cannot wait to hear his explanation.
The dedication is real, ladies and gentlemen.
The dedication is real. As soon as he plugs his headphones in, I'm going to ask him, like, I need a play-by-play.
It looks like Adam has settled into a supply closet of some sort.
Adam,
quiet environment.
what
Yeah.
the hell happened? We need an explanation.
Okay, I am so sorry. For those of you who don't know, I just started working in Illinois, and my Wi-Fi doesn't work in my apartment. I have to buy an internet box, so I ran to work, and I was sitting outside getting eaten up by flies, just while I was touching my face. One of my bosses, just left and said, "Hey, you want to come inside?" Didn't realize I was doing a live podcast. Ran inside, tried to get here as fast as I can. So we're all good now.
You know what? Adam and I were recording last week, and my girlfriend like randomly walked in, and she was like, "Oh my god, we're live!" And I was like, "Yeah, man!" Like,
Hey, how's it going?
she was on a Zoom call last week or 2 weeks ago, and I just gotten out of the shower. She was like, "Don't come in this bedroom. Like, I'll bring you your clothes." Did I see my phone? No. Walked in, towel on, like Zoom meeting. Felt really bad for her. That was I'm sure that was a pretty awkward moment for her, let alone me. Adam, we were talking about the universal DH. We were talking about how obviously it's beneficial to all American League teams because you're finally getting some good bats there, and just the fact that a guy like Pete Alonso, a guy like Robinson Cano can see the field every day and not have wear and tear. Who knows if there's how much wear and tear there's going to be in a 60-game season, but the fact that you can just get all-stars in your lineup every day without wearing and tearing their bodies, both offensively and defensively, I think that's very benefit. I think that's the more beneficial part for these National League teams.
I can understand how that's beneficial, of course, but I think the NL still could have kind of implemented that because, for example, let's say, you want to give Cano a rest. So you don't have in the lineup, but then you have him replace the pitcher in the order, and then he gets in a bat or two. You can still kind of work their way in. However, I think the universal DH will give a lot more NL teams a better bat, maybe more combative against American League teams when they have interleague play or go into the playoffs and maybe eventually the World Series. And also just gets rid of the pitcher, too, who are batting 140. So that, of course, helps. So,
and I feel like interleague play and the World Series, some teams aren't built for the designated hitter. A lot of National League teams aren't. So when you're playing an American League team, it's tough to find a good example, but I feel like not a lot of National League teams have a good DH. The Yankees have a guy like Giancarlo Stanton. The Red Sox have a JD Martinez. So these teams are equipped with a designated hitter they can rely on to drive in 100-plus runs and have an OPS of over 900. Not a lot of National League teams have that. So I feel like even though that the pitcher could be taken out of a lineup in a World Series ball game, they're still kind of at a disadvantage because their DH is not nearly as good as the American League DH. And we can go back and forth on if the American League could have went with the pitcher, but I feel like with the universal DH moving forward, more likely than not, I feel like NL teams can at least start building for that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And, it's natural that the ALDHs look better now because they've had, I think the DH has been 50. Yeah, you've had 50 years to scout out all the fat guys who can only hit and sign them to DH contracts. Give a couple of years,
as they would say.
They'll start drifting over to the NL. And there are some guys who right away, I think, should have already been DHs. Like Kyle Schwarber should have been a DH all along. Aristides Aquino for the Rockies, he looks like a natural DH guy who's just going to hit a bunch of home runs. That's what DHs are for, right? So I do think that we will see that kind of level off moving forward. But it will be interesting to see how the NL teams handle this to start because, Ryan, you make a good point that there's not every team has like a slam dunk DH that makes sense. And guys might tinker around with their lineups a lot moving forward, trying to find out the best way to maximize the value of their roster. I
can tell you from firsthand, when I was working for the Mets, Brody Van Wagenen said, we traded for Robinson Cano because we're expecting a DH in the National League. So he told us right to our face. And Brody's getting wishes earlier than he expected, I must say. Let's talk about the trade deadline. It's still happening this year. It's going to be on August 31st. First of all, I'm very surprised that it's happening with what's going on in the world. But my main concern is owners have not been afraid. Well, I guess they kind of have been because we don't really know exactly who. But owners are already in a bad light because they have said that they're going to be shedding payroll. They wanted to save a lot of money this season, and that's why we're playing 60 games in the first place. It took a lot of ripping and tugging just to get full pro rata for a 60-game season. So I really wonder, let's say a team like the Cleveland Indians with Francisco Lindor set to hit the free agent market after this season. I really wonder, Adam mentioned a 20-20 tear by the Kansas City Royals team, which is a 500 season with 20 games to go. You're still in the middle of a postseason push. If the Indians are 15-25, which 162 games you can live with, 60, your season's done. Are they just going to trade off everyone for a salary dump? In this world that we're living in right now, I'm really interested to see if any teams that are out of it really early. Same thing with the Mets, who have questionable ownership, or the Oakland A's or the Tampa Bay Rays. Those last three teams are not teams that I expect to be out of it early, but it is baseball. Anything can happen, guys. So I really wonder if we're just going to see teams just say, hey, take our star players if we have no chance.
I think we really might see trade galore happen because, and just a quick correction, I think Lindor's a free agent after 21.
Is it next year? I think
it is.
You might be right.
But nonetheless, they still might trade him because Indians been trying to shop Lindor forever, and this could be the perfect opportunity. Or look at a small market team like the Marlins. They have Jonathan VR, who is the only 20-40 player in the major leagues. They could try to sell this guy for such a high price and get some great prospects in return, because even if a mediocre team is still in the playoff hunt, they could use a Jonathan VR. So we might see a lot of trades happening. I think the number one concern is, well, how will they do that in a safe manner? Will they have to quarantine them for a couple of days? Will they only have in-division trading? As far as I know, I think it's just normal trading laws, trading issues, trading rules, but you never know. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully it'll be done in a safe manner. And I honestly think that we'll see a lot of trading even between good teams. Maybe they need a reliever. Maybe they can afford to give up a backup first baseman, and that could be a done deal right then and there.
I absolutely agree with you guys. I think we could see a whole lot of teams end up wanting to be sellers. I do think expanded playoffs maybe helps combat that, and to where more teams are going into it thinking they have a chance. But if we get 30 games in and it doesn't look to be the case, I think we could have a lot of teams that are willing to dump salary and want to be sellers. Now, I think where we run into trouble is maybe not as many teams are going to be willing to dish out the prospect capital necessary to hook those big fish, because, I mean, with so much uncertainty in the shortened season and expanded playoffs, you get there, you have more teams to beat out. And, maybe this season doesn't weigh the same as a championship and moving forward in the future. So I do question how much we're going to see teams willing to step up and be buyers at the deadline.
You make a good point, too, about expanded postseason. That's why I wanted more postseason teams this year. Like, a couple of years ago, I just like how we're questioning the man on second base and the DH, I questioned that second wildcard team. I've learned to love it. Maybe I have some bias just because the Yankees are 2-1 in them, and I've seen both of those games live, and they were friggin' awesome. But it's just I really wish, because let's say a team like the Cubs are kind of a bad example because they're a bubble team. So I'll use a team like the Yankees and the Dodgers. If they get off to a crappy start, we literally saw it with the Nationals last year, guys, where they started 19-31 and they won the World Series. 19-31, you're at the point of no return at that point. Even through 60 games, I think they were 22-37-38. So it's not like they improved that much through their last 10 games. And that's why I wanted to see expanded postseason, because even a team like the Cubs on the bubble or the Mets on the bubble, but more importantly, if you have a crappy start like the Yankees and Dodgers had, look at the Yankees from 2005, guys. They started 11-19. They won 95 games. 11-19, you might be screwed. And that's why I wanted to see expanded postseason teams, because A, the postseason might be more exciting in the long run, but B, I feel like we're already questioning the legitimacy of this season. So I wanted to see more of these bubble teams, more of these good teams that could have a slow start into the postseason race and improve that legitimacy. a little bit, and you know that you didn't just have a bad start for nothing.
I could definitely have seen expanded playoffs or even just more postseason games. To the best of my knowledge, I think it is just the same as it always has been with the 10-team rule and one game wild card game. It would have been nice because, hey, if a mediocre team such as the Padres make it and they have to play the Dodgers, who are the best team in the NL, well, instead of a best-of-5 series, now it's best-of-7. So the Dodgers are more likely to get the much-deserved win that they probably should get. So I agree with you there. And even if you had 14 teams or 16 teams and then had more playoffs there, you get more revenue and more teams can try to battle each other, and they could even do it for a longer period of time so that even they somewhat fringe teams and teams that have a rough start can make it into. I think this year would have made sense, but like I said, I'm very skeptical of MLB doing something for 1 year and not reaping in the rewards and not keeping it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when the rewards are that many extra hundreds of millions in TV revenue. If this whole process has shown us anything, it is that money talks in the MLB. And that goes to show you that expanded playoffs are coming and not going anywhere, that they will be around for the foreseeable future, which I don't think is really a bad thing for the average fan. Your team has a better chance of squeaking into the playoffs. And, you know, for a fan of a fringe team like the Cubs, that is a better feeling. It gets me more excited about the season, and then I feel like I have more of a reason to be invested. So I think that the more people are watching, that's never a bad thing, especially as the game is trying to grow and especially appeal to younger audiences.
We've been on, as you see in the top left corner, just over 40 minutes now. Before we wrap up, I want to do it. I have to do it. We got to talk about Vegas right now. A lot of baseball odds are going crazy. I personally hate every single. We did an over-under. Well, we must have done it in late January, early February, where we did our over-unders. Now I hate every single over-under. I'm not touching any of them, but there definitely are a couple of bets that I think I like. I'm on VegasInsider.com right now. I'm looking at my screen. Jacob deGrom is obviously the front runner for the Cy Young Award. Let me look through here. Kershaw's at 15-1. That's
a little high.
Value.
I'm feeling pretty good about the unders we took in February, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. Those are locks. Those are definitely some locks there. Here's one I like. Zach Wheeler is 50-1 to win the National League Cy Young. I don't like Zach Wheeler, and I think a lot of you guys definitely know that about me. But what I do like about Zach Wheeler is that his stats, and look, these can go totally out of the window because it's a 60-game season, but Zach Wheeler, statistically, his best ERAs are in August and September. I think both of them, it's like under 2.5 throughout his career. And that's pretty decent coming from a guy whose career ERA is like a 3.7 or a 3.8, somewhere in that range. 50-1, I might take a shot at that. I don't know. I know you guys wrote down a couple of things, who can hit 40-plus wins. I think the Yankees and Astros were at 37.5 and 36.5. You guys mentioned someone could be below Bob Gibson's 1.12 ERA. And look, you know what? In a 60-game season, these guys are going to be making 12 or 13 starts ish. Mm-hmm. That's very possible. Even though that it obviously wouldn't go down in the history books like that, wouldn't it just be cool to see something like that happen? I looked at a couple of MVP odds. I think Nolan Arenado was like 15-1. I think I forgot another. I really liked another one that I saw in the American League. I think Bregman was like 12-1. Who knows what's going to go on with the Astros this year? They're not going to have anyone booing them, which might be nice. So maybe I'll take a little sprinkle on Bregman 12-1.
No brawls too. Brawls have been outlawed. You get suspended for like 20 games.
Exactly. If you get into a brawl, then you're out a third of the season. I know that you guys aren't huge on the gambling game. I mean, not that I am, but I can definitely have my moments. That's for damn sure. But you guys wrote a whole bunch of notes in this doc. Let me hear what you guys really like to see.
I've heard some crazy takes on Twitter. So you guys should remember about Trout's baby, right?
Yes.
So that might derail him a couple of games, and he might have to get quarantined too. So what if that makes it possible that someone could swoop in and steal the MVP away from him? That'd be the craziest kind of coincidence and to ever happen. And
first of all, the fact that he's plus 125 right now, like, is mind-blowing. Like, that's such horrible value, but, like, it's Mike Trout. So, like, you might just have to bet it. But you do bring up a good point, though, in the fact that he might miss some time if he has to quarantine. Let's see what else we got here.
Couldn't it kind of be the year of the long shot, though, in that a 60-game season? Like, we could have somebody pretty random win MVP, win Cy Young. Like, if it was last year, Tyler Glasnow would have been the Cy Young after 60
That's why I like Zach
sure.
Wheeler. I mean, the fact that he's a dog in the summer, you might as well just take a sprinkle on it. I mean, I want to look at some of these over-unders. Like, I want to see what a team like the Blue Jays and the Mariners are. 'Cause keep in mind, guys, like the Mariners, they started
11-2
last year.
Yeah,
I wouldn't count on that again. I'd be a little more optimistic about the Blue Jays.
But I think the Blue Jays over under like in February was 75. So they're probably hovering at around like 27.5. If you think they're a 500 team,
yeah.
Either way, we can say what we want about 60 games, but I do think one thing is for sure. As much as I don't want a baseball season to be 60 games, hell, I don't want a baseball season to be 140 games. I like a baseball with 162 season, 162 game season. There we go. Third time's a charm. I like it because we have seen that every game is very important, guys. And I know that there obviously are some wild situations that we are in right now, but I do think I speak for all three of us where we are happy that baseball is back. And just like that, we are inside of 1 month until opening day. July 23rd is the official opening day for, I think, four or six teams, they said. And then everyone else is going to be kicking off on July 24th. So stay tuned. We finally have some real baseball to talk about. Who knows what we're going to be dissecting throughout the spring because no one's really going to play each other. But we are going to have some updated project. I mean, look, in February, we were wondering when Aaron Judge is coming back. Maybe now we're probably still wondering that.
We're still wondering.
I heard he's going to be healthy, so I think we have a good
shot. I wanted someone to crack in on that because I knew I wasn't the only one thinking that. But in all seriousness, I mean, look, Shohei Ohtani is now – he's almost set to go to hit and pitch.
6-man rotation.
Yeah, he's going to be in the rotation. Aaron Hicks looks like he's going to be playing. So we had our division breakdowns a couple of weeks ago. A couple of months ago, I should say. Maybe we can get right back into that. But, guys, a month left until opening day, and I'm really excited. For Adam, for Henry, I'm Ryan. This is Exit Velo. So long and take care, everybody.